The artificial gravity on Nexus Station seemed to press down harder on Telara with each passing day. Or perhaps it was just the weight of starvation. Her once vibrant bioluminescent patterns, natural markings that adorned the skin of all Ceridians, had dimmed to a faint glow, pulsing weakly beneath her tattered garments. The food vendors' row of Nexus stations lower level buzzed with activity. Creatures from across 12 star systems haggled, ate, and bartered while Telara watched from the shadows, her amber eyes, the only part of her that still shone with their natural intensity, taking in the bounty that might as well have been in another galaxy for all she could reach it. She hadn't eaten in 3 days. The nutrient capsules she'd rationed since escaping her conquered homeworld had finally run out. The small pouch of universal credits she'd managed to hide from thieves contained barely enough for half a standard meal. Her translator implant, the only technology she'd managed to keep, beeped softly to indicate its battery was failing. Without it, she would lose her last connection to the wider galactic community. "Just move on, Sari trash," a hulking Draverian food vendor growled when she lingered too long near his stall. "Your kind make paying customers uncomfortable." Telara straightened her posture despite the pain. "I have credits," she said, her voice rasping. "Perhaps not enough, but—" "Not enough is the same as nothing," the vendor interrupted, turning away to serve a pair of heavily armed mercenaries. Desperation clawed at her insides, sharper than hunger. She moved to the next stall, where a human woman stirred a pot of something that smelled so wonderful it brought tears to Telara's eyes. "Please," Telara whispered, "I need to eat." The woman glanced up, unmoved. "Everyone needs to eat, honey. That's why I'm in business, not charity." Telara swallowed hard. I could clean, or—" Her voice failed her as shame burned through her chest. "Or what?" The woman's eyes narrowed, a cruel smile playing at her lips as she realized what Telara was suggesting. "Oh, honey, even if I was interested in that kind of trade, look at you. You're half dead already." The woman's laughter drew attention from nearby patrons. A Krell trader with metallic skin nudged his companion. "The Sari is trying to barter her body for food. How low they've fallen since the invasion." More laughter, more eyes turned toward her. Telara's bioluminescent patterns flickered in humiliation, the Ceridian equivalent of a deep blush. "I just need enough to survive until—" Until what? Until she found work, until someone from her decimated world came looking for survivors. There was no until anymore. "Move along," another vendor called out. "You're bad for business." Telara stumbled away from the food stalls, vision blurring. The station's recycled air felt suddenly thin. Her legs trembled, threatening to give way. Just as darkness began creeping into the edges of her vision, a firm hand caught her elbow. "Steady there," a deep voice said. She looked up into the face of a human man, tall, with skin tanned by actual sunlight rather than the artificial UV lamps of space stations. His dark hair was cropped short on the sides but longer on top, and a thin scar ran along his jawline. He wore the utilitarian clothes of a cargo runner, durable, practical, with numerous pockets and subtle armoring at vulnerable points. "I don't need help," Telara said automatically, the lie bitter on her tongue. The man's expression remained neutral. "Everyone needs help sometimes." He guided her to a small seating area away from the staring crowd. "Stay here." Before she could protest, he walked directly to the human woman's food stall. Words were exchanged. Credits changed hands. Minutes later, he returned with a steaming bowl and set it before Telara. "Eat slowly," he advised. "Your system needs to readjust." Telara stared at the food, then at the man, suspicion warring with desperate hunger. "What do you want in return?" The man sat across from her, his gray eyes calm. "Nothing." "Everyone wants something," she countered, her translator implant struggling to convey the bitterness in her tone. "My name is Marcus Adler," he said instead of arguing. "I pilot a small cargo vessel called the Wayward Comet, and contrary to how things work on Nexus Station, sometimes people just help each other." Telara's hands trembled as she lifted the spoon. The first taste of the rich broth nearly undid her composure. It took every ounce of restraint to eat slowly as he'd advised. "Why would you help me?" she asked between careful spoonfuls. You don't know me. Marcus shrugged. I know enough. You're a Ceridian refugee. Your world fell to the hegemony about 8 standard months ago. You've probably been on the run since then. How did you... The pattern of your bioluminescence. It's distinctive to the southern continent of Ceridia. Plus, the timing fits the refugee waves I've transported. Telera's spoon paused halfway to her mouth. You've helped my people before. A few. I contract with some humanitarian groups when I can. His expression darkened. Not enough, though, never enough. As the food revived her, Telera's senses sharpened. She studied this human more carefully. There was weariness in the lines around his eyes, but no malice. His aura, which her empathic abilities could just barely sense in her weakened state, carried the weight of old sorrows, but also a steady, unwavering light. I'm Telera, she finally offered, and thank you for the meal. You're welcome, Telera. He watched as she finished the last of the food. Do you have somewhere safe to sleep tonight? The question brought reality crashing back. She'd been evicted from her rented storage pod 3 days ago. I'll manage. Marcus nodded, seeming to understand her reluctance to admit vulnerability. My ship has a spare crew quarter. It's small, but it's clean and secure. You'd have privacy and your own lock code. Telera's amber eyes widened. Why would you offer that to a stranger? Because I've seen enough people manage on Nexus Station. His voice carried a quiet intensity. It rarely ends well. The obvious trap seemed too obvious to be real. And yet, Telera had nowhere else to go. Death by trusting this stranger seemed no worse than death by starvation or violence in the station's shadowed corridors. One night, she agreed cautiously, the faint glow of her bioluminescent patterns strengthening slightly with the nourishment. Just until I can find something else. Marcus stood and offered his hand. One night, he agreed. As Telera took his hand and rose to her feet, she couldn't know that this simple act of unexpected kindness would alter the course of both their lives forever. In a galaxy that had taken everything from her, perhaps this one human would give her something she'd never expected to find again. Hope. The wayward comet was nothing like the grand vessels Telera had imagined when Marcus described himself as a cargo pilot. Instead of a gleaming corporate transport, she found herself walking up the ramp of a retrofitted mid-range hauler, its hull bearing the scars of micrometeorite impacts and hasty repairs. It's not much, Marcus said, nodding her expression as the airlock cycled behind them, but she's reliable. Telera stepped into the main cargo hold, her amber eyes adjusting quickly to the dimmer lighting. She searched for a diplomatic word. A mess, Marcus finished for her with a half-smile. I've been meaning to organize these supply crates for weeks. The hold was indeed cluttered, but not dirty. Crates of various sizes were secured to the deck with cargo netting, and the walkways remained clear. Telera's empathic senses picked up no danger, only the lingering emotional imprints of Marcus's solitary existence. This way to the living quarters, he said, leading her up a narrow staircase to the ship's upper level. The corridor was compact but well-maintained. Marcus stopped at the second doorway. This will be your room. He tapped a code into the panel and the door slid open. You can reset the lock to whatever combination you prefer. Telera hesitated at the threshold, peering into the small cabin. A narrow bed, a storage locker, and a tiny desk with a built-in screen filled the space efficiently. A door in the side wall presumably led to a personal hygiene unit. I still don't understand, she said, turning to face him. Why offer this to me? Marcus leaned against the opposite wall, giving her space. Would you believe me if I said I just prefer not to let people starve when I can do something about it? No, Telera answered honestly, not in my experience. A shadow of sadness crossed his face. Then let's say I have my reasons, and none of them involve harming you or expecting anything in return. She studied him, drawing on what remained of her empathic abilities. Despite her weakened state, she could sense no deception, only a complex tangle of emotions. Compassion, guilt, resolve, and something deeper that she couldn't quite identify. I need to make a supply run to Helios Station tomorrow, Marcus continued. You're welcome to stay aboard while I'm gone, or I can drop you somewhere else in the morning. You'd leave me alone on your ship. Telara couldn't hide her disbelief. Marcus shrugged. I'll lock down the navigation and engine systems, of course, but the rest, food, shower, entertainment console, it's all yours. I could steal from you. You could, he agreed easily. But the truly valuable stuff is biometrically secured, and somehow I don't think you're the type. Telara felt a flicker of indignation at his presumption, accurate though it was, and something else. A strange warmth at being treated as a person worthy of basic trust. The hygiene unit has sonic and water options, Marcus said, changing the subject. Water's limited, but you're welcome to use it. There are spare clothes in the storage compartment under the bed, nothing fancy, but clean. He stepped back toward the corridor's main passage. The galleys at the end of the hall, help yourself to anything. I'll be in the cockpit if you need me. With that, he left her alone, the door remaining open until she chose to close it. Telara stood frozen for several moments, waiting for the other shoe to drop. When nothing happened, she cautiously entered the room and closed the door, activating the lock with trembling fingers. The promised hot water shower was a luxury she hadn't experienced in months. As the water sluiced over her azure skin, temporarily brightening her bioluminescent patterns, Telara allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. Silent tears mingled with the shower's spray as the day's humiliation and unexpected reprieve overwhelmed her. When she emerged, wearing a simple gray jumpsuit she'd found as promised, she felt more like herself than she had in weeks. Her translator implant, recharged using the room's power port, now functioned properly again. Hunger drew her toward the galley. She found Marcus there, preparing 2 bowls of something that smelled far better than the station food. Thought you might want a real meal, he said without looking up from his cooking. Station food is designed for quantity, not quality. Why are you doing this? Telara asked again, unable to stop herself. This time, Marcus turned to face her fully. 6 years ago, I was stranded on a mining outpost after a job went bad. No credits, no communication, and a damaged ship. He stirred the pot slowly. A Ceridian xenobotanist found me half frozen in a maintenance corridor. She could have walked by, most did. Instead, she shared her rations, helped me repair my comm systems, and asked for nothing in return. He spooned the thick stew into bowls. I never forgot that. When the hegemony attacked Ceridia, I tried to help with evacuations, but I was too late for most. His jaw tightened. Including her. Telara accepted the bowl he offered, understanding dawning. You're paying a debt. No, Marcus said firmly. Kindness isn't a transaction, I'm continuing a chain. That's different. They ate in silence for a while, Telara savoring the rich flavors of real, home-cooked food. What will you do, Marcus asked eventually, if I take you back to the station tomorrow? The question hung heavy in the air. Telara had no answer that wasn't bleak. I have an alternative proposition, he continued when she didn't respond. I could use a second pair of hands on these cargo runs, nothing illegal, he added quickly. Just basic transport between stations, room, board, and a share of the profits. Telara set down her spoon. You don't know anything about me. I know you're resourceful enough to have survived this long as a refugee. I know you maintained your dignity even when offering everything you had for a simple meal. His gray eyes held her steadily. That tells me enough about your character. And if I'm not interested, then I'll take you wherever you want to go tomorrow, give you enough credits for a week's lodging and food, and wish you well. Telara's mind raced. The offer seemed too good to be true, but her empathic senses detected no deceit. Just as she opened her mouth to respond, the ship's communication system chimed. Marcus frowned, checking the console embedded in the galley wall. Urgent transmission, he muttered, activating the screen. A gruff voice filled the room. Adler, got an emergency run to Eridani. High-priority medical supplies. Double the usual rate if you can leave within the hour. Marcus's expression shifted to one of calculating interest. Eridani's a 3-day haul, Gregorovich. Triple rate then, but I need your answer now. Sending contract details. As Marcus reviewed the incoming information, Taylora saw his expression brighten. "This is enough to—" he began, then glanced at her and seemed to reconsider his words. "I'll take it, prepping for departure now." After ending the transmission, he turned to Taylora. "Change of plans. This job, it's enough to set you up properly somewhere if that's what you want. Or," he hesitated, "a solid start if you decide to stay on as crew." Taylora felt the weight of the decision before her. Trust this human stranger and embark on an uncertain journey, or return to the desperate existence she'd been barely surviving. "I'll go with you to Eridani," she said finally. "After that, we'll see." Marcus nodded, respect evident in his expression. "Fair enough. We leave in an hour. Better get some rest while you can." As Taylora returned to her small cabin, she realized something had shifted within her. For the first time since fleeing her conquered homeworld, she felt a flicker of something dangerous and fragile. Hope. The wayward comet slipped into the darkness between stars, its engines humming with the steady rhythm that had become soothing to Taylora over the past 2 days. She sat in the co-pilot's chair, her amber eyes fixed on the navigation console as she monitored their course through a particularly dense asteroid field. "Adjust heading by 2 degrees port," she said, her voice calm despite the massive rock formations drifting dangerously close to their starboard side. Marcus complied without question, his hands moving confidently across the controls. Good catch. Working alongside him had proven surprisingly easy. He was patient with her questions, thorough in his explanations, and, most shocking of all, genuinely interested in her input. When she'd hesitantly mentioned that her people's natural spatial awareness might help navigate the asteroid field, he'd immediately invited her to take the co-pilot position. "That's the last of the big ones," Marcus said as they cleared the densest part of the field. "Should be smooth sailing from here to the Eridani checkpoint." Taylora allowed herself to relax slightly, leaning back in the chair. Her bioluminescent patterns, which had brightened considerably with proper nutrition and rest, pulsed with a soft golden glow in the dimly lit cockpit. "You're good at this," Marcus observed. "Ever thought about getting your pilot's certification?" Taylora gave a small, bitter laugh. "Refugees aren't exactly welcome in flight academies. There are independent instructors who don't care about galactic politics," Marcus replied. "I know a few who owe me favors." She turned to study his profile, illuminated by the console lights. "Why would you do that for me?" "Because you have talent," he said simply. "Seems a waste not to develop it." The straightforward answer caught her off guard. On Ceridia, her empathic abilities had made her valuable as a healer and counselor, but those skills seemed useless in the harsh reality of refugee life. That someone would see potential in her now, after everything she'd lost. "I was a healer," she said quietly, surprising herself with the admission. "Before the invasion." Marcus glanced at her, curiosity evident in his expression. "A doctor." "Not exactly. We call it an empathic resonator. I can sense emotional states, physical pain." She hesitated. "Sometimes I can help alleviate suffering through a kind of emotional transference." "That's why you avoided crowded areas on the station," Marcus realized. "Too much emotional input." Taylora nodded. "It can be overwhelming, especially negative emotions like fear, hunger, pain." She looked down at her hands. "But it also lets me know when someone is being truthful." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "That's how you decided to trust me." "Partly," she acknowledged, "though in my weakened state I couldn't be certain." A smile tugged at her lips. "I took a calculated risk." "I'm glad you did," Marcus said softly. Their eyes met, and for a moment, something electric passed between them. Taylora felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with her empathic abilities and everything to do with the growing warmth she felt whenever Marcus was near. The ship's proximity alert shattered the moment. "Unidentified vessel approaching from Sector 4, Marcus muttered, scanning the readouts. "No transponder signal." Taylora's senses immediately heightened. "Pirates." "Most likely." His expression hardened as he made quick calculations. They're on an intercept course. We can't outrun them in this sector. Too many gravitational anomalies. What do we do? Instead of answering immediately, Marcus pulled up a holographic display of the surrounding area. There's a nebula about 15 minutes from our position at maximum thrust. The radiation will mask our signature if we can reach it before they're in weapons range. Without hesitation, he diverted power from non-essential systems to the engines. The wayward comet lurched forward, the sudden acceleration pressing Talara back into her seat. "Rerouting emergency power," she said, falling naturally into a support role as her fingers danced across the auxiliary controls. "Reinforcing aft shields." Marcus shot her an appreciative glance. "You're a quick study." "Good teacher," she countered, checking the scanner. "They're gaining, but slower than I expected." "Their ship looks heavy, probably modified for boarding operations rather than speed." His jaw tightened. "Means they're slavers, not just thieves." The word sent a chill through Talara. Ceridian refugees were particularly valuable on the slave market due to their empathic abilities. 5 minutes to nebula perimeter," Marcus announced. "They'll be in weapons range in 4. Talara's mind raced. The cargo containers in hold 3, the empty ones we were going to fill at Eridani. What about them? If we jettison them on a proximity trigger, would the explosion create enough interference to mask our entry into the nebula? Marcus's eyes widened. "We'd have to time it perfectly." A slow grin spread across his face. "It's risky, I like it." Working in seamless coordination, they programmed the jettison sequence. As the pursuing vessel closed the gap, Marcus's hand hovered over the release control. "Now," Talara said, her empathic senses somehow attuned to the perfect moment. The empty cargo containers exploded brilliantly against the backdrop of space, temporarily blinding the pursuer's sensors. Marcus immediately executed a sharp dive into the nebula's swirling gases, cutting all non-essential power as they drifted deeper into the concealing clouds. For several tense minutes, they sat in near darkness, the cockpit illuminated only by emergency lighting and the soft glow of Talara's bioluminescent patterns. "They're searching the perimeter," Marcus whispered, watching the scanner's faint readings. "But they're not entering the nebula." "The radiation," Talara realized. "They don't have our shield configuration." Another 10 minutes passed before Marcus allowed himself to relax. "They've moved off, probably decided we weren't worth the risk." Relief washed over Talara. She hadn't realized how tightly she'd been gripping the armrests until she forced her fingers to release. "That was," she began. "Brilliant," Marcus finished. "Your idea saved us." The pride in his voice warmed her from within. "We make a good team," she said softly. "We do." His gaze lingered on her face, an intensity in his eyes that made her bioluminescent patterns pulse more brightly in response. "We should stay here for a few hours," he continued, his voice rougher than before. "Make sure they're truly gone." Talara nodded, suddenly acutely aware of how small the cockpit felt, how close they were sitting, how the nebula's swirling colors cast an intimate glow through the viewscreen. "I have some Arcturian whiskey in my quarters," Marcus offered. "Seems like a good occasion for it." The invitation hung in the air between them, weighted with possibility. Talara found herself nodding before she could overthink it. In his quarters, which were only slightly larger than hers, Marcus poured 2 glasses of the amber liquid. Their fingers brushed as he handed her the drink, sending a pleasant shiver through her body. "To quick thinking," he toasted. "And calculated risks," she added, meeting his eyes as she sipped the whiskey. It burned pleasantly down her throat, warming her from within. "When I saw you at that food stall," Marcus said after a moment, "something told me you were different, special." Talara set down her glass. "I was just another desperate refugee." "No," his voice was firm. "I've seen desperation. What I saw in you was dignity, even at your lowest moment." He moved closer, not touching her, but near enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "You never stopped being who you are, Talara. That's rare." Her empathic abilities, strengthened by rest and safety, detected the complex emotions emanating from him. Admiration, desire, and something deeper that made her heart race. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice catching. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, leaning closer still. Instead, Telara closed the remaining distance between them, pressing her lips to his in an answer more eloquent than words. His arms encircled her waist, gentle yet firm, pulling her against him as the kiss deepened. Her bioluminescent patterns flared brilliantly, casting the room in a pulsing golden light that mirrored the rhythm of her quickening heartbeat. When they finally parted, breathless, Marcus traced the glowing patterns along her cheek with tender reverence. "Beautiful," he whispered. For the first time since fleeing her homeworld, Telara felt truly seen, not as a refugee or a Ceridian or even a potential crew member, but as herself, as a woman worthy of desire and affection. Their second kiss was slower, deeper, an exploration rather than an impulse. His hands skimmed respectfully along her sides, following but never presuming. "Is this okay?" he asked between kisses, his restraint evident despite the desire in his eyes. In answer, Telara guided his hand to the seam of her jumpsuit, where it sealed from neck to waist. With deliberate slowness, she lowered the closure, revealing the intricate patterns that swirled across her collarbones and chest, now glowing with unmistakable invitation. "More than okay," she breathed against his lips. As they moved to his bed, hands exploring and garments gradually discarded, Telara's empathic abilities amplified every sensation. She could feel not only her own pleasure but echoes of his, creating a feedback loop of desire and satisfaction that transcended physical touch. In the soft, nebula-lit darkness of his quarters, they discovered each other fully, their bodies finding a harmony as natural as their partnership at the ship's controls. With every caress, every kiss, every whispered endearment, something new blossomed between them, something neither had expected to find in the vast emptiness of space. Afterward, as they lay entwined, Telara's head resting on Marcus's chest, she felt a contentment she'd thought lost forever. "Whatever happens at Eridani," Marcus murmured against her hair, "I want you to know that it's not because of circumstance, it's because of who you are." Telara propped herself up to look into his eyes, finding only sincerity there. "And who am I, Marcus Adler?" His smile was tender as he traced the now softly glowing patterns along her bare shoulder. "You're Telara, survivor, healer, navigator, and the most remarkable woman I've ever met." As she settled back against him, lulled by the steady beat of his heart, Telara allowed herself to believe that perhaps the universe hadn't finished with her after all. Perhaps, in the midst of losing everything, she'd found something, someone, worth building a new life around. The nebula's swirling colors continued to dance across the view screen, a kaleidoscope of possibilities stretching out before them. Eridani Station gleamed against the backdrop of space, its massive rings rotating in perfect harmony to create artificial gravity for the thousands who called it home. From the viewport of the wayward comet's cockpit, Telara studied the approaching structure with a mixture of wonder and apprehension. "It's beautiful," she admitted as Marcus guided the ship toward their assigned docking bay. "And dangerous," he added, his expression serious. "Eridani has official security unlike Nexus, but it also has more organized criminal elements. Stay close to me when we deliver the cargo." Telara nodded, the intimacy they'd shared in the nebula still humming beneath her skin. The past day had transformed their relationship in ways neither had anticipated. Professional boundaries had dissolved into something far more personal, more vulnerable, and infinitely more precious. "Docking procedures initialized," she said, focusing on the task at hand rather than the distracting memories of Marcus's hands on her body, his lips against her bioluminescent patterns. "Perfect alignment," he commented with approval. "You really do have a gift for this." The ship settled into its berth with barely a tremor. Marcus powered down the engines and turned to Telara, his expression softening as he took in the sight of her. Without the immediate demands of piloting, the air between them charged with unspoken desire. "We should," he began just as she said, "the cargo." They both laughed, breaking the tension. Business first, Marcus conceded, standing and stretching. Then we can discuss your career as my new co-pilot. Taylara's amber eyes widened. You're serious about that? Completely. He reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers. If you want to stay, that is. The question hung between them, weighted with implications beyond professional partnership. Taylora squeezed his hand in answer, her bioluminescent patterns brightening in a way Marcus had quickly learned to interpret as happiness. Let's deliver this cargo, she said. Then we can talk about everything. The medical supplies were packed in temperature-controlled containers in the ship's main hold. Together, they loaded them onto a hover trolley, Marcus handling the physical labor, while Taylora monitored the delicate stasis systems. According to the manifest, we're meeting the recipient at Docking Bay Medical Level 3, Marcus said, checking his comm unit. They're expecting us in 20 minutes. Taylora brushed a hand over her simple jumpsuit, suddenly self-conscious. Should I wait here? My species isn't common in this sector. Marcus frowned. No, we stay together. His protective instinct warmed her even as she noted the practical wisdom behind it. Besides, he added with a small smile, you have every right to be here. She nodded, grateful for his understanding of both her concern and her dignity. Eridani Station bustled with activity as they made their way through the main concourse, pushing the hover trolley between them. Taylora kept her head high despite the occasional curious glances her way. Beside her, Marcus moved with a confident stride that somehow made her feel safer than she had in months. They reached the medical level without incident and followed the directions to a secure receiving area. A thin, nervous-looking human in a lab coat waited by the entrance, checking his timepiece repeatedly. Adler, he asked as they approached, you're the courier from Nexus. That's right, Marcus confirmed. One shipment of stabilized plasma synthetics as ordered. The man barely glanced at the cargo, his attention fixing instead on Taylora with an intensity that immediately set off warning signals in her mind. Her empathic abilities detected a surge of recognition followed by calculation, neither of which made sense if this was a legitimate transaction. All seems to be in order, the man said, his voice higher than before. If you'll just bring it inside, my colleagues will verify the contents. Marcus hesitated, his instincts clearly aligning with Taylora's unease. Protocol is to verify in the open receiving area, he said firmly. Cargo Manifest Section 8, Paragraph 4. The man's expression tightened. Of course, my mistake. He tapped his comm unit quickly, muttering something Taylora couldn't quite catch. Within moments, 3 security officers rounded the corner, their uniforms bearing Eridani insignia but their postures all wrong, too tense, too predatory. Marcus, Taylora whispered, her voice urgent. These aren't station security. He nodded almost imperceptibly, shifting to place himself slightly between her and the approaching men. Change of plans, he said loudly. We need to verify this cargo with station authority first. Seems there's been a documentation error. I'm afraid that won't be possible, the lab-coated man said, dropping all pretense of professionalism. You see, we're much more interested in your Ceridian companion than the medical supplies. Ice flooded Taylora's veins as understanding dawned. You're with the slave traders who pursued us. Affiliated, let's say? The man smiled thinly. Ceridian empaths fetch an extraordinary price, especially those with medical training. When our associates reported a Ceridian female traveling with a human cargo pilot, I knew it had to be you. How? Taylora demanded, fighting to keep her voice steady. Your family has been searching for you, my dear, or rather, what remains of your family. His smile widened. Your uncle was quite specific about your unique empathic signature, the brightest in 3 generations, I believe he said. Horror washed over her. My uncle is dead. He died in the invasion. Is that what you believed? The man laughed. How convenient for him. No, he's quite alive and quite wealthy now, thanks to his cooperation with the hegemony. Did you never wonder how they so easily bypassed Ceridia's defensive systems? Taylora felt as though the floor had dropped from beneath her feet. Her uncle, her father's brother, a man she'd trusted, a high-ranking member of the Ceridian Defense Council, a traitor. Marcus's hand found hers, squeezing tightly. "Whatever story you're selling, we're not buying," he said coldly. "We're leaving now." "I think not." The false lab technician nodded to his companions, who reached for weapons concealed beneath their uniforms. What happened next unfolded in a blur of motion. Marcus shoved the hover trolley hard, sending it crashing into the nearest guards. In the same fluid movement, he pulled Taylora toward a side corridor, his other hand drawing a concealed blaster from his jacket. "Run," he commanded, firing a warning shot that sent station visitors scattering in panic. They sprinted down the corridor, alarms blaring as the station's actual security systems registered weapons fire. Marcus led them through a series of maintenance passages, his familiarity with the station's layout giving them precious seconds of advantage. "I know a back route to the docking bays," he panted as they rounded another corner. "But they'll have people watching our ship." "We can't go back to the Comet," Taylora agreed, her mind racing despite the terror gripping her chest. "But we need to send a warning to Eridani security about the imposters." Marcus nodded, ducking into a small communication alcove. He accessed a public terminal, his fingers flying across the interface. "Anonymous tip sent. Now we need to disappear until the real authorities sort this out." They continued through the labyrinthine back corridors until they reached a quieter section of the station. Marcus ushered her into what appeared to be an abandoned storage room, securing the door behind them. "We should be safe here for a few hours," he said, checking the small space for any threats before turning his attention back to Taylora. "Are you all right?" She stood motionless in the center of the room, her bioluminescent patterns flickering erratically with emotional turmoil. "My uncle," she whispered, the words like ash in her mouth. "He betrayed us all." Marcus moved to her side, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "You couldn't have known." "Couldn't I?" Bitterness laced her voice. "I'm an empath. I should have sensed something." "He was family. You trusted him." Marcus drew her into his arms, offering comfort she wasn't sure she deserved. "This isn't your fault, Taylora." She pressed her face against his chest, drawing strength from his steady heartbeat. "They won't stop looking for me, not if they know who I am." "Then we'll need to be smarter than they are." He tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his gaze. "And we will be." The fierce protectiveness in his eyes steadied her. "We." "You didn't think I'd let you face this alone, did you?" A hint of a smile curved his lips. "I'm pretty invested in your well-being at this point." Despite everything, warmth bloomed in her chest. "Marcus, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking, I'm offering," his expression sobered. "But I need to know everything if we're going to outmaneuver them. No more secrets." Taylora nodded, understanding the necessity even as fear clawed at her throat. Taking a deep breath, she stepped back slightly, needing space to tell the full truth she'd kept guarded for so long. "I wasn't just an empath healer," she began, her voice steadying as she committed to the path of honesty. "I was the director of empathic medicine at the Central Healing Complex of Velara Province. My ability to sense and manipulate emotional energy is uncommon, even among Ceridians." Marcus listened intently as she continued. "When properly trained, those with my abilities can not only sense emotions but influence them. Calm fear, ease pain, even in extreme cases, temporarily neutralize aggression." She looked away. "It's why empaths like me are valuable. As healers, yes, but also as potential weapons." "Your uncle sold this information to the hegemony," Marcus concluded grimly. "And apparently has been hunting for me since." She met his eyes again. "The woman you found at that food stall wasn't just a refugee, Marcus. I'm someone the most powerful forces in this sector would pay handsomely to control." Instead of the fear or reconsideration she half expected, Marcus's expression hardened with resolve. "Then it's a good thing I found you first." He moved to a small console embedded in the wall, accessing it with a series of codes that surprised Taylora with their complexity. "What are you doing?" "Calling in some favors," he said, fingers working rapidly. I wasn't always just a cargo pilot. Talara watched as he sent a series of encrypted messages, each bouncing through different relay systems to mask their origin. Marcus, who exactly are you? He finished his task before turning to face her fully. I was a tactical officer in the Earth Alliance Navy, Special Operations. His expression darkened. I left when I was ordered to bombard a civilian settlement during the Proxima conflict, went independent, started running cargo instead of military ops. The revelation should have shocked her, but somehow it made perfect sense. The way he moved, his strategic thinking, his combat readiness, all pointed to training far beyond that of a simple cargo pilot. So that's why you help refugees, she said softly. Atonement. Partly, he moved closer again, his hand finding hers. And partly because when you've seen how quickly civilizations can turn on their own people, you develop a certain sympathy for those caught in the crossfire. Their eyes met in understanding born of shared trauma, different circumstances but similar wounds. What now? She asked. Now we wait for responses from my contacts. There are people who owe me their lives who operate in the shadows of Eridani. His thumb traced gentle circles on her palm. In the meantime, we need to discuss what happens after we get out of this mess. Talara raised an eyebrow. You're very confident we will. I've been in worse situations. A smile played at his lips, though none with such pleasant company. The compliment warmed her despite their predicament. Marcus, if we survive this, I want you to know that I... A soft chime from the console interrupted her. Marcus quickly checked the incoming message, his expression brightening. We have help, he announced. An old friend is bringing us false identities and passage on a private vessel leaving in 6 hours. Relief washed through Talara, followed quickly by determination. And once we're away from Eridani. Marcus's expression grew serious. That depends on what you want, Talara. We could find you a safe haven far from hegemony space, somewhere your uncle and his. The private vessel that spirited them away from Eridani Station was luxurious by Talara's recent standards. A sleek diplomatic courier with powerful engines and state-of-the-art stealth technology. Yet despite the comfort, tension coiled between her shoulders as she stared out the viewport at the retreating station. They're not following, Marcus confirmed, joining her after checking the ship's sensors. Velina's distraction worked perfectly. Velina, the old friend Marcus had mentioned, was a gray-haired human woman with hard eyes and a gentle smile who had arrived at their hiding place exactly as promised. She had provided them with impeccable false identification, passage on this courier ship, and orchestrated a raid on a suspected smuggling operation across the station, drawing security forces away from the docking bays during their escape. She seems like a formidable ally, Talara observed. Former intelligence operative, Marcus explained. Now she runs a network helping people disappear when necessary. I saved her team during an extraction gone wrong at Proxima. Talara nodded, understanding more now about the complex man beside her. Not just a cargo pilot with a conscience, but a soldier who had chosen his own moral path when official orders contradicted his principles. You said you wanted to stop running, Marcus said, his voice careful as he broached the subject they'd left unfinished in their hasty escape. What did you mean by that? Talara turned from the viewport to face him fully. My people have a saying, the hunted never knows peace, but the hunter never knows rest. A smile tugged at Marcus's lips. You want to turn the tables. My uncle betrayed not just me but all of Ceridia, she said, her voice hardening. Thousands died, millions displaced, and now he profits from hunting the survivors. Marcus studied her face. Taking on a hegemony collaborator won't be easy. He has resources, protection. I have something he doesn't. Talara's amber eyes gleamed with resolve. The truth. For 3 days, they traveled through less monitored corridors of space, away from major trade routes and hegemony patrols. The diplomatic courier deposited them at a remote outpost where, true to her word, Velina had arranged for the return of the wayward comet, delivered by another of Marcus's mysterious network of allies. As they boarded their ship once more, Taylora felt a surge of emotion that surprised her. She was coming home. Somehow, in the short time since Marcus had found her at that food stall, this vessel had become more of a sanctuary than anywhere she'd been since fleeing Ceridia. "It's good to be back," Marcus said, echoing her thoughts as the airlock sealed behind them. "Where to now?" she asked, though they had already discussed their plan in detail. "Galactic Hub Station," he replied. "If we're going to expose your uncle, we need the reach of the central broadcasting network." The journey to the hub would take almost 2 weeks, even pushing the engines to their limits. 2 weeks to prepare, to gather what evidence they had, to steel themselves for confronting a powerful enemy. 2 weeks that, despite the shadow hanging over their future, became some of the most precious of Taylora's life. During the day cycles, they trained together, Marcus teaching her combat techniques and evasion tactics, Taylora helping him understand how to shield his emotions from other empaths who might be working for her uncle. At night, they found solace in each other's arms, their physical connection deepening alongside their emotional one. In the quiet darkness of Marcus's quarters, now their shared space, Taylora's bioluminescent patterns would paint his skin with swirling light as they moved together, finding moments of perfect harmony amidst the uncertainty of their mission. "I never expected this," Taylora whispered one night, her head resting on Marcus's chest as his fingers traced the fatting glow along her shoulder. "When I offered myself for food that day, I thought it was the end of something, not the beginning." His arms tightened around her. "That moment haunts me," he admitted. "What would have happened if I hadn't been there?" "But you were." She raised herself up to look into his eyes. "Why, of all the desperate people in that port, why did you help me?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. "I'd like to say it was pure altruism," he finally said. "But the truth is, when I saw you standing there with your head high despite everything, I saw myself, what I could have become if someone hadn't helped me when I needed it most." Taylora leaned down to kiss him softly. "Then we're both part of that chain you mentioned, the one that isn't about debt but continuation." "And after we expose your uncle," he asked, "what then?" The question held weight beyond the immediate future of their mission. Taylora heard the unspoken question beneath it. "What about us?" "Then we continue," she said simply, answering both questions at once. The smile that spread across his face was worth every hardship she'd endured to reach this moment. As they approached the hub, Marcus received a transmission from another of his contacts, a journalist who had been investigating corruption within the hegemony's territorial acquisitions. "She has documentation," Marcus explained excitedly after the call. "Financial records showing payments from hegemony accounts to your uncle, dating back to before the invasion, and testimonies from other Ceridian refugees who recognized him working with hegemony officials during the attack." Hope surged through Taylora. "That's more than I dared dream possible." "There's more," Marcus continued. "She's arranged for us to meet with the Central Broadcasting Network's investigative team, with your testimony and her evidence." "We might actually succeed," Taylora finished, allowing herself to believe it for the first time. The Galactic Hub Station loomed before them, a massive structure at the crossroads of major trade routes, housing representatives from every significant planetary system and federation. If there was anywhere in the galaxy where the truth could be heard despite hegemony influence, it was here. Docking procedures completed smoothly, but as they prepared to disembark, Taylora hesitated. "What if he's here?" The fear she'd been suppressing rose suddenly. "My uncle has spies everywhere." Marcus took her hands in his. "That's why we have backup." He gestured to the comm unit, where a confirmation signal flashed from Velina and 3 other contacts stationed throughout the hub. "We're not alone in this fight anymore, Taylora." She nodded, drawing strength from his confidence and the knowledge that, for the first time since the invasion, she was part of something larger than her own survival. They moved through the hub's crowded concourses carefully, using the false identities Velina had provided. The meeting point was a private conference room in the media sector, supposedly secured against surveillance. The journalist, a sharp-eyed Tauran woman named Desta, was waiting with two network executives when they arrived. "The Ceridian empath," Distas said, her tone revealing nothing as she assessed Telara. "You're taking an enormous risk coming here." "The risk of silence is greater," Telara replied. The meeting progressed rapidly, the network executives increasingly engaged as Distas presented her evidence, and Telara provided first-hand testimony about her uncle's position and the details of Ceridia's defensive systems that only someone of his rank could have compromised. "This is explosive material," one executive said finally. "If we broadcast this—" "When you broadcast this," Marcus corrected firmly, "it will create a diplomatic crisis with the hegemony." "It will create justice for Ceridia," Telara countered. The discussion continued, arrangements made for a formal recorded statement, security protocols established. As they left the meeting, Telara felt simultaneously lighter and more vulnerable than ever before. "We did it," she said quietly as they made their way back toward the docking bay. "They're going to tell the truth." Marcus nodded, his expression vigilant as he scanned the corridor ahead. "The broadcast is scheduled for tomorrow. We just need to stay safe until—" He stopped mid-sentence, pushing Telara behind him as three security officers approached from a side passage. Unlike the false officers at Eridani, these wore the authentic insignia of Hub Station Authority. "Citizen Adler," the lead officer asked, addressing Marcus, "and companion." Marcus's hand moved subtly toward his concealed weapon. "What can I do for you, officers?" "Please come with us," the officer said. "Someone wishes to speak with you." Telara's empathic senses strained to read the officer's emotional state, detecting only professional detachment, not the anticipation or malice she would expect from her uncle's agents. "I'm afraid we have a prior engagement," Marcus replied smoothly. "It concerns the safety of your broadcast," the officer added, lowering his voice, "and comes from a mutual friend. The chain continues," he said you would understand. Marcus and Telara exchanged glances, recognizing Velina's code phrase. "Very well," Marcus agreed cautiously. They were escorted through a series of secure corridors to a small, elegant office where a distinguished older man waited, his uniform bearing the insignia of a high-ranking Federation diplomat. "Ambassador Jarek," Marcus breathed, recognition evident in his voice.